I'm going to talk about massive experiential bloat. And the main aim of the talk is to plea or to give some considerations in favor of what I call a massively temporally bloated mind. And I want to contrast this massively temporally bloated mind with a punctuated mind. And what is the punctuated mind? Well, the punctuated mind is like the temporal equivalent of spatial internalism. Spatial internalism says that what is of crucial interest about the mind, that is what happens in the brain, or in any case, in some very circumscribed spatial area. The punctuated mind, as the temporal equivalent of that, says that what is of crucial interest about the mind happens in a relatively short temporal window. It is like not spatial, but temporal internalism. Now, I know that, or I think, or I suspect that many of you already have sympathy for this unpunctuated, this bloaty, temporally bloaty mind. But I also want to make you sensitive for the force of the punctuated picture. I think it's enormously influential, enormously strong as an intuition in philosophy, especially in analytical philosophy, and in cognitive science. And you can find the intuitive appeal of it, perhaps by thinking of yourself sitting in a chair, enjoying experience. And it looks to you in that moment that everything of importance in your mind is contained in a short moment. In every moment, the wholeness of the mind is given to you. I think one can easily help oneself to such a picture about the temporal aspects of the mind. And I'm going to try to contrast that picture with the temporally bloated mind. Good. Now, there is another version of mental bloat, and that is, of course, the one tied to this spatial internalism. You can object to spatial internalism, and you can say that the mind is not spatially restricted, but that it is extended, that it spreads into the environment. And everybody knows, of course, this kind of literature and this idea of extended mind. Here is the two main architects and defenders of that, Andy Clark, David Chalmers, especially David and Clark, who is now promoting the idea. And you know the idea, but the important, the idea, well, you know the idea, it points out that in interactions with notebooks, with technological stuff like iPhones, computers, and many other things, cognition becomes part of a process that spans both brain, body, and world because of the kind of interaction which is cognitive does involve these worldly items. Okay, now, what about bloat? There's an objection which internalists have formulated with respect to the externalist thesis, and this is the bloat objection. Spatial internalists say that you must constrain the mind spatially to their favorite domain of internal area in which it is constrained. And you have to say that everything else, like those things that have to do with the notebook, computer, the iPhone, you have to consider these as being purely causal, not constitutive, not really belonging to what the mind really is. They're merely causal influences on the mind. And a consideration or an argument or consideration and argument they give against spatial externalists is that if you count these causal influences of the notebook, etc., as truly cognitive, then there's no end to where the mind stops. There's so many causal influences on the mind that bloat goes over, spreads over everything that has a causal impact on the mind, and you're lost in a total diffusion of the mind. There's no end to spatial extension. That's a typical bloat objection to externalism.